The Alienware M16 is Alienware's premium 16-inch gaming notebook. The Alienware M16 is the M18's smaller sibling, retaining all of its best and worst qualities, including a robust build, unique styling burdened by poor speakers, average to poor battery life, and a fatal flaw. The M16 is clearly well built, with a chassis made from aluminum and plastic. Alienware has historically designed good-looking chassis, and here is no different. Some may find the lights garish, but I personally don't mind them and mostly just turn them off if they start to bother me. The keyboard is satisfying to type on. While we did not opt for the Cherry MX mechanical keyboard, we think some may prefer that typing experience, but for $150 we skipped it. We did, however, opt for the per-key RGB keyboard, which is standard in this space on a premium laptop, and we think it's silly that a notebook that starts at $1,700 charges $50 for the privilege. This is some Porsche 911 type option gouging, and we don't appreciate it. As always, the small trackpad surface is smooth and pleasant, but not anything special. We prefer Asus's trackpad implementations, although most will rarely use the trackpad for anything other than light use. We think the overall design of the notebook is still cool looking, and this generation of chassis design is Alienware's best visual implementation yet. On the other end of the spectrum, the speakers are usual Dell fare, just absolute garbage. Lows, mids, and highs are flat and just sound lifeless and awful in our suite of test songs. We do not suggest using these speakers for anything other than gaming, and even then we would still rather use a cheap pair of headphones or quite literally anything else. We don't understand why a premium laptop brand still struggles so much to make passable speakers on their flagship devices. The screen is Alienware's usual 1600p 240Hz display, which we really like. A 480Hz 1200p panel is available as well, but we think it sacrifices visual quality for a refresh rate that this notebook mostly isn't going to saturate in most games. However, your mileage may vary. Brightness is rated at 300 nits, and it usually hits that. We find it to be bright enough, but just barely. This is not a display that we would suggest using in bright environments, the way Asus's mini LED displays generally can be. As far as the chassis is concerned, the bottom panel comes off to allow for maintenance and RAM or SSD upgrades, all available through Dell or otherwise. We suggest finding non-Dell solutions for your upgrades, as their price isn't always competitive. Additionally, we suggest putting your own storage in past 1 terabyte, as Dell charges a hefty premium to add more. In terms of battery life, our AMD test unit with a Ryzen 9 7845HX performed better than we expected from an Alienware laptop in our battery tests for a notebook of this size and power. With the screen on its lowest brightness setting, Wi-Fi on, all lighting off, and quiet mode enabled, the system lasted about 4.5 hours. In testing on a 4K YouTube playlist at 40% brightness while reading comments, we got roughly 3.5 hours of screen on time. We think these times are acceptable for a system clearly not designed to be a dual-purpose machine. The M16 makes no effort to be a portable everyday device, especially considering the massive 330-watt power brick that Dell ships with this notebook, no matter what, to save costs, ensuring that most will never consider taking this laptop anywhere. We found Advanced Optimus was somewhat buggy, but generally we can live with the second or two it takes to switch GPU. Speaking of taking this laptop anywhere, during all of my light productivity tests, mostly light Chrome browsing and text editing, we found this notebook got noticeably hot, and fans would have to spin up no matter the mode we were in. Other notebooks of this size, like the Asus G16 and the Acer Predator Helio 16, did not show this. However, thin-in lights like the Blade 14, Asus G14, and the Zephyrus M16 did. That said, we think there is a bit more to this story than just fan noise here. CPU temps and RAM usage at idle with no applications open hovered at around 45 and 65% respectively, much like all other Alienware devices we've tested recently, with the worst case being the M15's AMD variant, which we had to return to the retailer due to consistent overheating. This was fixed with registry level edits, at which point I was just too frustrated to make a video. When we investigated the programs that were hogging those resources, we found the same as always. Alienware's 12 to 20 bloatware programs in the background eating up system resources in Windows. When we went to benchmark the notebook, we found that the system performed okay, if not slightly below average, except for a consistent microstutter that also plagued our M18, except this time it was much more frequent. Games were completely unplayable, to the point that the system would occasionally stutter for seconds at a time, despite the load not being particularly demanding. Along with that, the system blue-screened during gameplay a few times. As with the Intel version of the M16 before it, we are pretty much willing to consider this laptop a DNF, but we will see the rest of the review through because we know some people will buy it anyway. The M16's stutter is caused by the same thing that it's always been in our experience with Alienware systems: Dell Support Assist, a program Dell pre-installs on their systems to diagnose, recover, and generally perform basic system functions. Just like any other system integrator, bloatware is a cheap and easy way to ensure that you always engage with the OEM's solution to any given problem, which leads to various upsells and other revenue sources for that OEM. In this case, once we cleaned the system of all Dell pre-installed bloatware but left Command Center installed, our system functioned fine, just like the M18, Aurora R13, M15 Ryzen Edition, R5, and X17 before it. Idle and load temperatures dropped drastically and the microstutter disappeared completely. Frame rates were very high with Payday 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Starfield, and Resident Evil 4 Remake performing in the top tier of all RTX 4080 notebooks. Temps maxed out at 82 degrees in Cyberpunk with ray tracing on, and we think that's perfectly acceptable. Fan noise was under control, and generally the M16 provided a buttery smooth experience that makes the Predator Helios, Legion 9, and G16 take notes. Were it so easy? I live, sleep, and breathe hardware. I've paid attention to gaming laptops, desktops, and the PC space for 15 years or more. I've used so many gaming laptops that I understand how to optimize them and troubleshoot them. I've dealt with every mainline brand of gaming notebook, and it's my job to get to the bottom of these systems for the sake of you, the viewer. Alienware is a premium brand. Because of the way these systems ship and the way that these notebooks stay priced so competitively, it seems likely that there is a pretty good chance that a large portion of users who buy these notebooks do so because they know the name Alienware and want a no-hassle experience. The experience that those customers expect is quite far from what we got, and since Dell has multiple tiers of support, you can expect to pay a heavy premium for support that isn't just going to ask you a list of questions to try and avoid having to take the system back or hope you just get annoyed and forget it. The support assist stutter is not a problem unique to us, and while surely not every system Alienware ships is burdened with it, enough are that we have experienced this problem so many times with their systems we've come to expect it. If I wasn't testing these for review, and if I was just a basic user who wanted to enjoy some games after work while traveling or something similar, I would have returned it and gotten a Blade 16 or something else similarly priced. I cannot in good conscience recommend a product that functions so poorly out of the box, even if it only took me 6 minutes to fix it. As a consumer, demanding better is the only way forwards. If you must buy this laptop, then remove Dell's bloatware and buy it from a retailer with a return policy that you trust. If you must configure your own, we suggest optioning yours with a Ryzen 9 7845HX, 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, a 1 terabyte SSD, the 240Hz 1600p panel, and the RTX 4080. If you need the 4090, we'd suggest getting a larger notebook like the M18 or the Asus G18 SCAR, both of which we have also reviewed. In conclusion, if you're in the market for a 16-inch gaming laptop powerhouse that is as expensive as it is capable, consider the Razer Blade 16. It has a better screen, a faster processor, and returns excellent performance. It also doesn't ship with more than Razer Synapse, which is about 1/20th of the installed bloatware of the M16. If you want to save some money, consider the Predator Helios. If you're Goldilocks, consider the Asus G16 Scar. If none of this dissuades you, and you must have your alien head, once support assist is removed, we found the M16 to be a strong performer in a category of strong performers. For this group of you, we've linked the testing data in the video description. That said, no matter how easy the solution was this time, we still believe that these measures aren't necessary on other notebooks of this price category and far below. Acer, Asus, Apple, Lenovo, and sort of MSI all function fine out of the box. Expecting the same from Alienware isn't too much to ask, it's the bare minimum. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to our channel for more ways to complain about $2,900 laptops.